The castle of Ainsworth, at the close of the year 1655, was the resort of fashion and gaiety. The Baron of that name was the most powerful nobleman in Germany, and equally celebrated for the patriotic achievements of his sons and the beauty of his only daughter. The estate of Ainsworth, which was situated in the center of the Black Forest, had been given to one of his ancestors by the gratitude of the nation, and descended with other hereditary possessions to the family of the present owner. It was a castellated, Gothic mansion, built according to the fashion of the times, in the grandest style of architecture, and consisted principally of dark winding corridors and vaulted tapestry rooms, magnificent indeed in their size, but ill-suited to private comfort, from the very circumstance of their dreary magnitude. A dark grove of pine and mountain ash encompassed the castle on every side, and threw an aspect of gloom around the scene, which was seldom enlivened by the cheering sunshine of heaven. The castle bells rung on a merry peal at the approach of a winter twilight, and the warder was stationed with his retinue on the battlements to announce the arrival of the company who were invited to share the amusements that reigned within the halls. The Lady Clotilda, the Baron's only daughter, had but just attended her 17th year, and the brilliant assembly was invited to celebrate the birthday. The large vaulted apartments were thrown open for the reception of the numerous guests, and the gaieties of the evening had scarcely commenced when the clock from the dungeon tower was heard to strike with unusual solemnity, and on the instant a tall stranger, arrayed in a deep suit of black, made his appearance in the ballroom. He bowed courteously at every side, but was received by all with the strictest reserve. No one knew who he was or whence he came, but it was evident from his appearance that he was a nobleman of the first rank, and though his introduction was accepted with distrust, he was treated by all with respect. He addressed himself particularly to the daughter of the Baron, and was so intelligent in his remarks, so lively in his sallies, and so fascinating in his address, that he quickly interested the feelings of his young and sensitive auditor. In fine, after some hesitation on the part of the host, who, with the rest of the company, was unable to approach the stranger with indifference, he was requested to remain a few days at the castle, an invitation which was cheerfully accepted. The dead of the night drew on, and when all had retired to rest, the dull heavy bell was heard swinging to and fro in the grey tower, though there was scarcely a breath to move the forest trees. Many of the guests, when they met the next morning at the breakfast table, averred that there had been sounds of the most heavenly music, while all persisted in affirming that they had heard the awful noises, proceeding, as it seemed, from the apartment which the stranger at the time had occupied. He soon, however, made his appearance at the breakfast circle, and when the circumstances of the preceding night were alluded to, a dark smile of unutterably meaning played round his saturnine features, and then relapsed into an expression of the deepest melancholy. He addressed his conversation principally to Clotilda, and when he talked of the different climes he had visited, of the sunny regions of Italy, where the very air breathes the fragrance of flowers, and the summer breezes sigh over a land of sweets, when he spoke to her of these delicious countries, where the smile of the day sinks into a softer beauty of the night, and the loveliness of heaven is never for an instant obscured, he drew tears of regret from the bosom of his fair auditor, and for the first time she regretted that she was yet at home. Days rolled on, and every moment increased the fervor of the inexpressible sentiments which the stranger had inspired her. He never discoursed of love, but he looked in his language, in his manner, in the insinuating tones of his voice, and in the slumbering softness of his smile. And when he found that he had succeeded in inspiring her with favorable sentiments, a sneer of the most diabolical meaning spoke for an instant, and died again on his dark-featured countenance. When he met her in the company of her parents, he was at once respectful and submissive, and it was only when alone with her, in her ramble through the dark recesses of the forest, that he assumed the guise of a more impassioned admirer. As he was sitting one evening with the Baron in a wainscoted apartment of the library, the conversation happened to turn upon supernatural agency. The stranger remained reserved and mysterious during the discussion, But when the Baron, in a jocular manner, denied the existence of spirits and satirically mocked their appearance, his eyes glowed with unearthly luster, and his form seemed to dilate to more than its natural dimensions. When the conversation had ceased, a fearful pause of a few seconds and a chorus of celestial harmony was heard pealing through the dark forest glade. All were entranced with delight, but the stranger was disturbed and gloomy. He looked at his noble host with compassion, and something like a tear swam in his dark eye. After the lapse of a few seconds, the music died gently in the distance, and all was hushed as before. The Baron soon after quieted the apartment, and was followed almost immediately by the stranger. He had not long been absent when an awful noise, as of a person in the agonies of death, was heard, and the Baron was discovered stretched dead along the corridors. His countenance was convulsed with pain, and the grip of a human hand was visible on his blackened throat. The alarm was instantly given, and the castle searched in every direction, but the stranger was seen no more. The body of the Baron, in the meantime, was quietly committed to the earth, and the remembrance of the dreaded transaction recalled but as a thing that once was. After the departure of the stranger, who had indeed fascinated her very senses, the spirits of the gentle Clotilda evidently declined. She loved to walk early and late in the walks that she had once frequented, to recall her last words, to dwell on her sweet smile, and wander to the spot where once she had discoursed with him of love. She avoided all society, had never seemed to be happy but when left alone in the solitude of her chamber. It was then that she gave vent to her affliction in tears, and the love that the pride of maiden modesty concealed in public burst forth in the hours of privacy. So beauteous, yet so resigned was the fair mourner, that she seemed already an angel freed from the trammels of the world, and prepared to take her flight to heaven. As she was one summer evening rambling to the sequestered spot that she had been selected as her favorite residence, a slow step advanced towards her. She turned around and to her infinite surprise discovered the stranger. He stepped gaily to her side and commenced an animated conversation. "You left me," exclaimed the delighted girl, "and I thought all happiness was fled from me forever. But yet you return, and shall we not again be happy?" "Happy," replied the stranger, with a scornful burst of derision. "Can I ever be happy again? Can there? But excuse the agitation, my love, and impute it to the pleasure I experience at our meeting. Oh, I have many things to tell you. Aye, and many kind words to receive. Is it not so, sweet one? Come tell me, truly, have you been happy in my absence?" "No. I see in that sunken eye, in that pallid cheek, that the poor wanderer has at least gained some slight interest in the heart of his beloved. I have roamed to other climes. I have seen other nations. I have met with other females, beautiful and accomplished. But I have met but only one angel, and she is here before me. Accept the simple offering of my affection, dearest," continued the stranger. "Plucked a healthy rose from its stem. It is as beautiful as the wild flowers that deck thy hair, and as sweet as the love that I bear thee." "It is sweet indeed," replied Clotilda, "but its sweetness must weather ere night closes round. It is beautiful, but its beauty is short-lived, as the love evinced by man. Let not this, then, by the type of thy attachment, bring me the delicate evergreen, the sweet flower that blossoms through the year. And I will say, as I wreathe it in my hair, the violets have bloomed and died, the roses have flourished and decayed, but the evergreen is still young, and so is the love of heart. You will not, cannot desert me. I live but in you. You are my hopes, my thoughts, my existence itself, and if I lose you, I lose my all. I was but a solitary wildflower in the wilderness of nature, until you transplanted me to a more genial soil. And can you now break the fond heart you first taught to glow with passion?"
"Speak not this," returned the stranger. "It rends my very soul to hear you. Leave me, forget me, avoid me forever, or your eternal ruin must ensue. I am a thing abandoned of God and man, and I did but just see the sacred heart that scarcely beats within this moving mass of deformity. You would flee me, as you would an adder in your path. Here is my heart, love, feel how cold it is. There is no pulse that betrays its emotion, for all is chilled and dead as the friends I once knew."
Clotilda spoke with deep emotion.
"You are unhappy, love, and your poor Clotilda shall stay to secure you. Think not that I could abandon you in your misfortunes. No, I will wander with thee through the wide world and be thy servant, thy slave, if thou wilt have it so. I will shield thee from the night winds, that they might not blow too roughly upon thy unprotected head. I will defend thee from the tempest that howls around, and though the cold world may devote thy name to scorn, though friends may fall away and associates within their grave, there shall be one fond heart that will love thee better in thy misfortune, cherish thee, and bless thee still."
She ceased speaking. Her blue eyes swimmed in tears as she turned her glistening gaze of affection towards the stranger. He averted his eyes from her, and a scornful sneer of the darkest, deadliest malice passed over his fine countenance. In an instant, the expression subsided. His fixed, glassy eyes resumed their unearthly chillness, and he turned once again to his companion.
"It is the hour of sunset," the stranger exclaimed. "The soft, beauteous hour when the heart of lovers are happy and nature smiles in unison with their feelings. But to me, it will smile no longer. Ere the morrow dawns, I shall be very far from the hours of my beloved, from the scene where my heart is enshrined as in a sepulchre. But must I leave thee, dearest flower of the wilderness, to be the sport of a whirlwind, the prey of a mountain beast? No, we will not part," Clotilda replied passionately. "Where thou goest, where I go, thy home shall be my home, and thy God shall be my God. Swear it."
"Swear it," the stranger resumed, wildly grasping her by the hand.
"Swear to the fearful oath I shall dictate."
He then bade her kneel, and holding his right hand in a menacing attitude towards heaven, he threw back his dark raven locks and exclaimed in a strain of bitter imprecation, his smile ghastly like that of an incarnate fiend. "May the curses of the offended God," he cried, "haunt thee, cling to thee forever. In the tempest and in the calm, in the day and in the night, in sickness and in sorrow, in life and in death, shalt thou serve from the promise thou hast made to be mine. May the spirits of the damned howl in thine ears an accursed chorus of fiends. May the air rack thy bosom with the quenchless flames of hell. May the soul be the laser house of corruption, where the ghost of departed pleasure sits enshrined in a grave, where the 100-headed worm never dies, where the fire is never extinguished. May a spirit of evil lord it over thy brow and proclaim, as thou passed by, this is the abandonment of God and man.
And may fearful spectres haunt thee in the night season. May the dearest friends drop day by day into the grave and curse thee with thy dying breath. May all that is most horrible in human nature, more solemn than language can frame or lips can utter, may this, and more than this, be thy external portion, shouldest thou violate the oath thou hast taken."
He ceased, hardly knowing what she did. The terrified girl ascended to the awful adjuration and promised eternal fealty to him.
who was henceforth to be her lord. "Spirits of the damned, I thank thee for thine assistance," the stranger shouted. "I have wooed my fair bride bravely. She is mine. Mine forever. Aye, body and soul. Both mine. Mine in life and mine in death. What? In tears, my sweet one, ere yet thy honeymoon is past? Why, indeed, thou hast cause for weeping. But when next we meet, we shall meet to sign the nuptial bond." He then imprinted a cold salute upon her cheek, and softening the unutterable horrors of his countenance, requested that she meet him at 8 o'clock the following evening in the chapel adjoining the castle of Ainsworth. She turned towards him with a burning sigh, as if to implore protection from himself. But the stranger was gone. Upon entering the castle, Clotilda was observed to be deeply melancholic. Her relations vainly endeavored to ascertain the cause of her uneasiness, but the tremendous oath that she had sworn completely paralyzed her faculties. She feared betraying herself with even the slightest intonation of her voice or the least variable expression of her countenance. When the evening concluded, the family retired to rest. However, Clotilda, unable to sleep due to her restlessness, requested to remain alone in the library adjoining her apartment. It was now deep midnight. Every domestic had long since retired, and the only sound that could be distinguished was the sullen howl of a baying dog as he bayed at the waning moon. Clotilda remained in the library, lost in deep meditation. The lamp burning on the table where she sat was dying away, and the lower end of the apartment was already more than half obscured. The clock from the northern angle of the castle told the hour of 12, its chimes echoing dismissively in the solemn stillness of the night. And suddenly the oaken doors at the far end of the room gently lifted on its latch, and a bloodless figure, clad in the habiliments of the grave, advanced slowly. No sound heralded its approach as it moved noiselessly towards the table where Clotilda sat. She did not perceive it at first, but then she felt a death-cold hand grasp her own, and heard a solemn voice whisper in her ear. "Clotilda." She looked up. A dark figure stood beside her. She attempted to scream, but her voice failed her. Her gaze was fixed, as if by magic, upon the form. Slowly, it removed the garb that concealed its face, revealing the livid eyes and skeletal shape of her father. He seemed to gaze upon her with pity and regret before mournfully exclaiming, "Clotilda, the dresses and the servants are ready. The church bell has tolled, and the priest awaits at the altar. But where is the affianced bride? There is room for her in the grave, and tomorrow she shall be with me." "Tomorrow," Clotilda faltered, her voice trembling. "The spirits of hell shall have registered it, and tomorrow must the bond be cancelled." And the figure said nothing more, slowly retreating into the darkness until it was lost in the obscurity of distance. The morning, no, the evening, arrived. As the hall clock struck 8, Clotilda was already on her way to the chapel. It was a dark, gloomy night. Thick masses of dune clouds sailed across the firmament, and the roar of the winter wind echoed ominously through the forest trees. She reached the appointment place, where a figure awaited her, and as she approached, it advanced, revealing the features of the stranger. "Why, this is well, my bride," he sneered, "and well shall I repay thy fondness. Follow me." They proceeded in silence through the winding avenues of the chapel until they reached the adjoining cemetery. Here, they paused for an instant. Then, in a softened tone, the stranger spoke. "But 1 hour more, and the struggle will be over. And yet, this heart of incarnate malice can feel when it dooms so young, so pure a spirit to the grave. But it must be, he continued, as memories of her past love flooded his mind, for the fiend whom I obey has so willed it. Poor girl, I am leading thee indeed to our nuptials. But the priest shall be death, thy parents the mouldering skeletons that rot in heaps around, and the witness to our union, the lazy worms that revel upon the various bones of the dead. Come, my young bride. The priest is impatient for his victim. As they proceeded, a dim blue light moved swiftly before them, illuminating the extremity of the courtyard where the portrayals of the vault stood open. And in silence they entered. The hollow wind rushed through the gloomy abode of the dead, and on every side lay the moldering remnants of coffins, their fragments falling piece by piece upon the damp mud. Every step they took landed upon a dead body. The bleached bones rattled horribly beneath their feet. And at the center of the vault rose a heap of unburied skeletons, atop which sat a figure too terrible for even the darkest imagination to conceive. And as they approached, the hollow vault rang with a hellish peal of laughter, and every moldering corpse seemed to stir with unholy life. And the stranger paused, grasping his victim tightly. A single sigh escaped his lips, a lone tear glistening in his eye. But it lasted only an instant. The figure on the skeleton throne frowned at his hesitation, waving a gaunt hand. The stranger advanced, making mystic circles in the air and uttering unearthly words. And then he paused, overcome with terror. Suddenly he raised his voice, wildly exclaiming, "Spouse of the spirit of darkness, a few moments are yet thine, that thou mayest know to whom thou hast consigned thyself. I am the undying spirit of the wretch who cursed his Savior on the cross. He looked upon me in his final hour, and that look has never passed away. I am cursed above all on earth. I am eternally condemned to hell, and I must cater to my master's hunger until the world is reduced to ash, and the heavens and the earth pass away. I am he whom thou mayest have read, and of whose feats thou mayst have heard. 1,000,000 souls must I ensnare, before my penance is accomplished and I may know the peace of the grave. Thou art the 1,000th soul that I have damned. I saw thee in thine hour of purity, and marked thee at once for my own. Thy father I murdered for his termity, permitting him only to warn thee of thy fate. And thou hast sealed it by thine own simplicity. The spell works bravely, and soon thou shalt see whom thou hast linked thy undying fate. For as long as the seasons move in their course, as long as the lightning flashes and the thunder rolls, thy presence shall be eternal. Look below, and behold thy destiny." And she looked. The vault split into 1,000 directions. The earth yawned asunder, and the roar of mighty waters filled the air. A living ocean of molten fire churned beneath her. The shrieks of the damned blended with the triumphant shouts of the fiends, turning horror into something beyond imagination. 10 million souls writhed in the fiery abyss, their cursed wails echoing across the flames. The boiling billows dashed them against blackened rocks, and each scream reverberated like thunder, and the stranger rushed towards Clotilda, and for an instant he held her over the burning chasm, looking upon her face with something almost tender. He wept as if he were a child. But the impulse lasted only a moment. He grasped her tightly once more, then hurled her from him with fury, as her last parting glance cast kindness upon his face. He stated, "Not mine is the crime, but the religion thou'st professed. For is it not written that a fire eternal is prepared for the souls of the wicked? And hast thou not incurred its torments?" She, poor girl,
heard nothing. She heard not the shouts of the blasphemer. Her delicate form was cast from rock to rock, and from billow to billow. And as she fell, the molten ocean seemed to lash itself in triumph, eager to receive her soul. And as she sank deeper into the burning pit, 10,000 voices thundered from the abyss.
Spirit of evil, here indeed is an eternity of torment prepared for thee. For here the worm never dies, and the fire is never quenched.